Chapter 2. Wisdom. The Dichotomy of Control. The most important part of wisdom, and the most important idea in Stoicism generally, is the dichotomy of control. This concept distinguishes between things within our complete control and those beyond it. Living wisely, according to the Stoics, requires cultivating indifference towards everything outside our sphere of influence, while focusing our full effort on what we can actually control. Epictetus, a prominent Stoic teacher, identified that our opinions, impulses, desires, and aversions fall under our direct control. In contrast, external circumstances such as unforeseen events, misfortune, health issues, and injuries are aspects towards which we should maintain a Stoic indifference. In A Guide to the Good Life, Professor William Irvine subtly refines the concept, aligning it with our contemporary understanding of the nature of the mind. He introduces what he calls the trichotomy of control. According to Irvine, this framework categorizes things into three distinct levels of control: complete control, partial control, and no control. He narrows the scope of complete control to our opinions, which includes our goals and values. Irvine then reassigns the other qualities that Epictetus considered under complete control, impulses, desires, and aversions, to a category of partial control. Everything else falls under the realm of no control. I find it useful to break it down a little more in the following way. Total control, our opinions, goals, and values. These exist entirely within my own mind, and therefore are under my full control. Significant control, actions, desires, and fears. My actions are within my control as long as I am not possessed by overwhelming emotions. Desires and fears, though potent, are subject to my judgment, and are things I can change my opinion about. Moderate control. Impulses. These are spontaneous and challenging to manage, yet with practice and foresight, they can be moderated. Limited control. Likes and dislikes. These ingrained preferences are more baked in, and while they can sometimes be overcome, it is only ever with diligent and sustained effort. Another popular form of this idea is the serenity prayer, often expressed as the following: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. To the Stoics, wisdom is literally possessing the ability to know that difference. The rest of the philosophy is the blueprint for how you go about changing what you can and accepting what you cannot. What is good and what is evil? After redefining what we have control over, the Stoics applied the same logic to the nature of good and evil. They argue that only things under our control can be classified as good or evil. Anything beyond our control is neither inherently good nor evil, only a preferred or dispreferred indifferent. For example, imagine having your annual physical and your doctor informs you that you have a serious illness. Certainly this is something even the Stoic sage would be upset about. It is not. Our bodies are external and outside of our control. They merely house the important part of us, and like our real houses, what matters is not how beautiful or lavish they are, but that they provide us shelter against the elements. My body may be ill, but I am not sick unless I poison myself by cursing my fate, wishing that fortune had treated me differently, and failing to see all my true benefits. I prefer to have a healthy body and disprefer pain, but I know that a healthy mind is the only true good. Or let us say you are accused and convicted of a crime you did not commit. The injustice of the situation, the flawed legal system, or the wrongful imprisonment are not the evils here. Certainly, you would prefer fair treatment, But the true evil would be allowing yourself to be consumed by resentment, fixating on the injustice, and harboring thoughts of vengeance. These reactions are within your control and thus can be deemed evil. While it is natural to desire justice, it is crucial to recognize the limits of your control and not let your inner peace hinge on external circumstances. But what about war? The critic will say. Certainly it is an evil to have one's very country overrun, carried away and despoiled. It is certainly preferable to live in peace, confident in the future and secure in the present. But the Stoic depends on the whims of fortune for nothing, not even this. Virtue stands in opposition to fortune and needs nothing from her. No matter what highs or lows fortune presents at the moment, the wise person knows that it will change again before long and builds the foundation of their happiness instead upon opposition to fortune. Setting internal goals and being indifferent. Having established what lies within our control and what constitutes good and evil, the next step is to apply this understanding to cultivate wisdom. This involves setting goals that are internal and fostering indifference towards what we cannot control. To safeguard our happiness from the whims of fortune, we must align our desires solely with what is within our control. Let us revisit the earlier examples to illustrate this approach. With a serious illness, if we previously thought good health was essential for happiness, we would suffer. Instead, by preparing for adversity and telling ourselves our minds matter most, we can maintain tranquility despite bodily circumstances. Where the average person might find themselves living with anxiety over these things which are outside of their control, the Stoic will recommit themselves to living in the moment, which is all any of us really have. They will remember that anything that can happen sometime can happen today. So their situation is not so different from the rest of humanity, and commit themselves to bearing it with wisdom and courage. In the event of an unjust conviction, while we may strongly prefer justice, our primary objective should be to uphold our dignity and resilience, discovering meaning even within imprisonment. The flawed justice system and the perceptions of the jury are beyond our control, yet our reaction to these circumstances remains under our power. Rather than succumbing to bitterness or anger, we can choose to preserve our dignity, strengthen our mental fortitude, and potentially find purpose in our new situation. We must understand that virtue and character cannot be taken from us, only lost by our own actions, and that freedom from fortune can be held even by one without physical freedom. When the war comes and all is lost, we must remember that everything given by fortune is only a loan which can be called back at any moment. We should remember that our country, our property, our friends and family, even our very lives are not ours to keep, and set out goals about those things which are really ours, our honour and virtue, our ability to choose the right path and to walk it regardless of the vicissitudes of fortune. In these dire times, our goal should be to never compromise our virtue and pay any price to follow our conscience. How can we be sure that this is the right path when everyone else seems to do the opposite? All we must do is examine the lives of those who worship fortune to see that there is no firm ground there. When fortune provides the object of their desires, they are overjoyed, but that feeling soon changes its name to fear of loss and jealousy of those to whom fortune has given more. When fortune takes back the gifts it has bestowed, these people wail and gnash their teeth, thinking the repayment of what they were given is theft of a terrible sort. No tranquility will be found for these people no matter the status they find themselves in. We must build our foundations upon something more solid. Superstitious worship of virtue. The Stoics despise that worship of fortune and practice, instead what Seneca called the superstitious worship of virtue. Here he is describing the process of becoming a Stoic.
Amid this upset condition of morals, something stronger than usual is needed, something which will shake off these chronic ills. In order to root out a deep-seated belief in wrong ideas, conduct must be regulated by doctrines. It is only when we add precepts, consolation and encouragement to these that they can prevail. By themselves, they are ineffective. If we would hold men firmly bound and tear them away from the ills which clutch them fast, they must learn what is evil and what is good. They must know that everything except virtue changes its name and becomes now good and now bad. Just as the soldier's primary bond of union is his oath of allegiance and his love for the flag, and a horror of desertion, and just as, after this stage, other duties can easily be demanded of him, and trusts given to him when once the oath has been administered, so it is with those whom you would bring to the happy life. The first foundations must be laid, and virtue worked into these men. Let them be held by a sort of superstitious worship of virtue. Let them love her. Let them desire to live with her, and refuse to live without her.
The Stoic philosophers made a bold and radical claim that true happiness stems solely from virtue. This perspective challenges the conventional view, arguing that what we typically yearn for and deem as good fortune, such as wealth, fame, power, robust health, and a sterling reputation, hold no real value in terms of true happiness. Similarly, the things we often dread and label as misfortune, poverty, illness, disgrace, exile, or persecution, are not genuinely detrimental. According to Stoicism, the essence of a fulfilling life lies in embracing and living out the virtues of wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. This path, they argue, is the authentic route to a life filled with joy. In contrast, most people believe happiness hinges on favorable circumstances, hoping that factors beyond their control, success in business, relationships, health, align in their favor. This reliance on external factors typically leads to a fleeting or absent sense of happiness, as fortune's favor is inherently temporary and unpredictable. Stoics describe this common attitude as a form of fortune worship. Stoicism, however, calls for a different kind of devotion, a deep, heartfelt reverence for virtue. It is not sufficient to merely recognize what is right or to attempt to act accordingly. Seneca emphasizes the need for a devoted love of virtue, a commitment that goes beyond mere understanding. This fervent embrace of virtue transforms its pursuit from something which could be a burdensome obligation into a source of genuine joy. Stoics willingly accept responsibilities that others avoid, finding happiness in the chance to demonstrate their virtue. This dedication to practicing virtue is what enables Stoics to find joy in upholding moral integrity and truth, even when it comes with a high personal price. It is this veneration that allows them to lead lives marked by contentment and fulfillment, irrespective of external circumstances.
If you once convince yourself of this, and if you come to love virtue devotedly, for mere loving is not enough, anything that has been touched by virtue will be fraught with blessing and prosperity for you, no matter how it shall be regarded by others. Torture, if only, as you lie suffering, you are more calm in mind than your very torturer. Illness, if only you curse not fortune and yield not to the disease. In short, all those things which others regard as ills will become manageable and will end in good, if you succeed in rising above them.
Do philosophy first. I'm going to let Seneca do most of the explaining here. This is all from Letter 72, from Letters from a Stoic, which is aptly titled On Business as the Enemy of Philosophy.
Devote yourself wholly to philosophy. You are worthy of her. She is worthy of you. Greet one another with a loving embrace. Say farewell to all other interests with courage and frankness. Do not study philosophy merely during your spare time. If you were ill, you would stop caring for your personal concerns and forget your business duties. You would not think highly enough of any client to take active charge of his case during a slight abatement of your sufferings. You would try your hardest to be rid of the illness as soon as possible. What, then? Shall you not do the same thing now? Throw aside all hindrances and give up your time to getting a sound mind, for no man can attain it if he is engrossed in other matters. Philosophy wields her own authority. She appoints her own time and does not allow it to be appointed for her. She is not a thing to be followed at odd times, but a subject for daily practice. She is mistress and she commands our attendance. Alexander, when a certain state promised him a part of its territory and half its entire property, replied, I invaded Asia with the intention not of accepting what you might give, but of allowing you to keep what I might leave. Philosophy likewise keeps saying to all occupations, I do not intend to accept the time which you have left over, but I shall allow you to keep what I myself shall leave. But the study of philosophy is not to be postponed until you have leisure. Everything else is to be neglected in order that we may attend to philosophy, for no amount of time is long enough for it, even though our lives be prolonged from boyhood to the uttermost bounds of time allotted to man. It makes little difference whether you leave philosophy out altogether or study it intermittently, for it does not stay as it was when you dropped it, but because its continuity has been broken, it goes back to the position in which it was at the beginning. Like things which fly apart when they are stretched taut, we must resist the affairs which occupy our time. They must not be untangled, but rather put out of the way. Indeed, there is no time that is unsuitable for helpful studies, and yet many a man fails to study amid the very circumstances which make study necessary.
You must make philosophy your top priority. You are spiritually ill and must make yourself well with all haste. You must start now and not give up until you have become wise, because like climbing a steep slope, any pause or hesitation risks causing you to slide back to where you started. If you wish to do good in the world, you must make yourself good first. This commitment involves a relentless pursuit of reason in every moment. It requires vigilant self-awareness, understanding the motives behind your every action. This path demands rejecting luxury and convenience, overcoming your vices, and a constant awareness of your mortality and that of your loved ones. It means remembering that not even the next hour is guaranteed, and living each moment in a manner that would leave you proud if it were indeed your last. Philosophy should not be an isolated activity. It should permeate all aspects of life, ensuring that every action is performed with excellence and virtue. Just as one can face death or endure pain with a philosophical mindset, so too should we approach work, shopping, eating, and all other activities. This is the guidance Seneca imparts when he advises us to do philosophy first. Let Stoicism be the lens through which you view and engage with every other part of life. Stoic practice, reflection journaling. The classic Stoic practice that you will see in every modern guide is reflection journaling, usually accompanied by this quote from Seneca.
When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by.
While definitely good advice, it does not fully capture the essence of how this practice functions within the system of Stoicism. Also, you will notice that Seneca is not actually journaling, he is reflecting internally. He can do this because he is wise, and also has not had his attention span destroyed by modern technology. Those of us with unwise modern brains will do much better actually writing things down. So, what is this reflecting actually doing for us? I think this quote illustrates it more properly.
I shall keep watching myself continually, and, a most useful habit, shall review each day. For this is what makes us wicked, that no one of us looks back over his own life. Our thoughts are devoted only to what we are about to do, and yet our plans for the future always depend on the past.
The Stoic maintains a nightly journaling practice as a way of learning to keep continual watch over themselves. Knowing that you will be recounting your day in your journal encourages you to be more attentive to your actions and experiences, helping you step away from automatic, unreflective behavior and choose virtue instead. Initially, you might find that your journal entries lack detail, or that you struggle to recall the day's events. However, with consistent practice, your recollection and presence in daily activities will improve, marking your progress in this practice. For best results, aim to journal every evening around the same time. The method of journaling, whether writing, typing, or speaking, is less important than the act itself. A brief session of 10 to 15 minutes each night is enough to keep you accountable during the day. As for prompts, we want to be reflecting on the things we want to be learning to pay attention to, so I suggest, what went well today and what did not? How could you have acted better?
What bad habit of yours have you cured today? What vice have you checked? In what respect are you better?
List the benefits you have received and why you are grateful for them. Think of ways you can return them in the future. What was the best idea you thought about today? What is your Seneca's someone part for himself?
Each day acquire something that will fortify you against poverty, against death, indeed against other misfortunes as well. And after you have run over many thoughts, select one to be thoroughly digested that day. This is my own custom. From the many things which I have read, I claim someone part for myself.
Keep track of how you act and make sure you are always making progress. Never forget to be grateful or to repay your benefactors. Each day remove one fault and find one excellent idea to fortify yourself against the whims of fortune. The effects of all of these grow exponentially over time, like compound interest. Think of what you would be like after doing this every day for a month, a year, 5 years, or even the rest of your life.